Hello, boys and girls. We're just about to the end of Jeremy Thatcher. I want to show you this. Um, so we just had Jeremy meeting up in what it looks like to be the woods, and we see uh, we see Miss Priest from the library is there, and she took him inside, and Tiamat went inside, and they're building something, a gateway for Tiamat to go home. And she told him to put the teeth into a stick, and when he tried to do it, it went into his hand, and he held his hand and said, "What are you going to do about this?" And, "Well, what about it?" And moved his hand, and there was just a little line and a little bit of blood. So it healed almost instantly. All right. "Done," said Miss Priest, setting the last tooth into the last stick, "though I can't say you were much help." Despite the chiding words, her face was still and calm. She reached for one of the skins, and as she spread it in front of her, she turned over her right hand. In the center of her palm, Jeremy saw a white line that looked exactly like the new mark on his own, in his own hand. He blinked. But when he started to ask her about it, Miss Priest shook her head and placed a finger against her lips. She tipped her head toward the back of the shop where Mr. Elives had gone, then shook it once more. Each gesture was small and silent. Jeremy's head swirled with the sense of secrets within secrets. He felt trapped between powers that he didn't understand. Miss Priest turned her hand away from him. Pulling a bit of eggshell from the box, she used the sharp edge to cut the skin into a spiral shape. "You see," she said as she threaded a strip of skin through one of the needles they had made. Shell, skin, and tooth all work together. They are all supposed to go back to her world. Nothing should remain here. "I don't want Tiamat to go back," said Jeremy sullenly. That means very, very sad. "I want her to stay with me." Miss Priest laughed. It was not a horrible laugh at all. "What a terrible idea," she said. "Why do you want her to stay?" "Because I love her. I don't want to lose her." Miss Priest reached out and took his chin in her hand. She looked into his eyes. "You silly boy," she said. "Nothing you love is lost. Not really. Things, people, they always go away sooner or later. You can't hold them any more than you can hold moonlight. But if they've touched you, if they're inside you, then they're still yours. The only things that you ever really have are the ones you hold inside your heart." She turned away from him and lowered her head. Then she crossed her hands over her chest and whispered, "Full moon's light to wake the egg, full moon's light to hatch it. Midsummer night will break your heart. All Hallows Eve may patch it." Jeremy recognized the poem. It was the one he had recited on the night he hatched the egg. Or is it? It seems different somehow. Before he could work out what had changed, Mr. Elives came back. "It's nearly time," he said softly. Jeremy looked at his watch. 5 minutes till midnight. "Where's Tiamat?" he asked. Mr. Elives nodded toward the back of the shop, but when Jeremy started in that direction, the old man put out a hand to stop him. "I have to tell her goodbye," said Jeremy. Mr. Elives shook his head. "You can't go back there." "But I didn't tell her goodbye. I didn't tell her I love her." Before Mr. Elives could refuse him again, Miss Priest put her hand on the old man's arm. "Let the boy in," she said. The old man snorted, but shrugged. Jeremy passed beyond the curtain into a place unlike anything he had ever seen before. The walls, if they were walls, seemed to be made of nothing but mist. A dim light suffused the area. In the middle crouched Tiamat. She looked frightened. Jeremy was frightened too. frightened by the strangeness of the place. But what he knew was about to happen. But he could not turn back. Crossing to Tiamat, he put his arms around her neck and laid his head against hers. I shall miss you so, he told her. She nodded and sent him an image of a crystal breaking in half. Now, step away, said Mr. Elives crossly. That means meanly. I love you, Tiamat, whispered Jeremy. He stumbled back and watched as Miss Priest and Mr. Elives assembled the sticks and strips of skin into a circle on the ground. They scattered the bits of eggshell across it. Mr. Elives gestured, and the circle tipped up until it formed a glowing gate. The bits of eggshell floated within the circle, shining like distant stars. The time has come, milady, said Miss Priest softly. Tiamat stepped forward. Jeremy could feel her slipping away from him. He closed his eyes. Don't go, he thought desperately. Don't go. Suddenly, Jeremy felt like he was being torn in half. He cried out. As he did, he heard an answering squeal of pain. Opening his eyes, he saw an awful sight. Tiamat, half in the circle and half out, was shaking with terrible spasms. Light sparked and flashed around her. Something's holding her, cried Miss Priest. Mr. Elives turned to Jeremy. Let her go, you little fool, he shouted. Let her go. Miss Priest ran to Jeremy's side. Let her go, Thatcher, she cried. She'll die, trapped between two worlds. If you love her, you have to let her go. A great sob tore from Jeremy's throat. Go, he thought. Go home. And then it was over. Tiamat was gone, and the place where they stood was plunged into darkness. Miss Priest wrapped Jeremy in her cloak and guided him back into the shop. The side door will get you home more quickly, she said. Then, bending close to his ear, she whispered, Be brave, Dragon Hatcher. Nothing you love is ever really lost. Jeremy barely realized he had left the shop until he found himself only a few blocks from home. The fog was gone, the full moon once more clear in the sky. A warm wind whispered around him, and the leaves overhead rustled with secrets. Jeremy didn't listen. Moaning, he stumbled to a tree, pressed his head against it. Tiamat was gone. Clutching the rough bark, he began to sob.